Okay, so this is the final part of chapter 4, Ghosts and Gibbons, and he just found a bottle on the sand. It came to me in a flash. Eddie had showed me how to do it. We tried it in the playground at school, hiding behind the dustbins where no one could see us. A piece of paper, a bit of glass, and the sun. We had made fire. I didn't have any paper, but leaves would do. I ran up to the beach and gathered whatever I could find from under the trees. Bits of cane, twigs, all sorts of leaves, paper thin, tinder dry. I made a small pile in the sand and sat down beside it. I held my piece of glass close to the leaves and angled it to the sun. I had to keep it still, quite still, and wait for the first wisp of smoke. If I knew I could get a fire lit, if only I could keep it alight, then I could sleep by it at night. It would keep the flies away and the animals too, and sooner or later a ship had to come by. Someone would spot the smoke. I sat and I sat. Stella came over to bother me. She wanted to play, but I pushed her away. In the end, she went off and sulked, stretching out under the shade of the palm trees. The sun was roasting hot, but still nothing happened. My arm was beginning to ache, so I arranged a frame of twigs above the leaves, laid the glass across it, then crouched by it and waited. Still nothing. All of a sudden, Stella sprang up from her sleep and a deep growl came from her throat. She turned and ran towards me, wheeling round to bark her fury at the forest. Then I saw what it was that had disturbed her. A shadow under the trees moved and came lumbering out into the sunlight towards me. A monkey, a giant monkey. Not a gibbon at all. It moved slowly on all fours, and was brown, ginger brown, an orangutan, I was sure of it. He sat down just a few feet from me and considered me. I dared not move. When he'd seen enough, he scratched his neck casually, turned and made his way on all fours slowly back into the forest. Stella went on growling long after he had gone. So there were orangutans here as well as gibbons, or perhaps it was the orangutans that made the howling noise and not gibbons at all. Maybe I'd been wrong all along. I'd seen a Clint Eastwood film once with an orangutan. The one I remembered had been friendly enough. I just hoped this one would be the same. Then I saw smoke. I smelled smoke. There was a glow amongst the pile of leaves. I crouched down and blew on it gently. The glow became flames. I put on a few more leaves, then a dry twig or two, then some bigger ones. I had a fire! I had a fire! I dashed into the forest and collected all the debris, all the dried up coconut shells, all the wood I could find. Back and forth I went until my fire was roaring and crackling like an inferno. Sparks were flying high into the air. Smoke was rising into the trees behind me. I knew I could not rest now, that the fire would need more wood, bigger wood, branches even. I would have to fetch and carry until I was quite certain I had enough to keep it going, enough in reserve. Stella, I noticed, would not come with me into the forest, but stayed waiting for me by the fire. I knew well enough why. I kept a wary eye out for the orangutan myself, but I was too intent on my fire now to worry too much about him. My pile of wood was huge by now, but all the same I went back into the forest one last time, just in case the fire burned itself out quicker than I expected. I had to go deeper in the forest, so it took a while. I was coming out of the trees, loaded with wood up to my chin, when I realised there was much less smoke coming from the fire than there had been before. No flames at all. Then, through the smoke, I saw him, the orangutan. He was crouching down and scooping sand onto my fire. He stood up and came towards me. Now, out of the smoke, he was not an orangutan at all. He was a man. And there's the picture. Okay, so the next chapter is called I, Kensuke. So this man here is going to be Kensuke. But he's obviously not a big fan of the fire because he's put the fire out. Why do you think he might be a bit scared of the fire? And how is Kensuke going to help the boy and his dog?